Hi guys, today we're talking about plants. In this group, it is myself, Melanie Salinas, Peyton Yoder, Emma Parker, and Michaela Jones. So moving on to our learning objectives, we want to make sense of natural phenomenon contributing to plants thriving and pollination. We want to identify the basic needs for survival, and we also want to understand how the earth and its properties affect life. Moving on to our teacher notes, we are talking about plants. The subject is science. The grade level we're working with is second grade. The class period should take about 25 minutes. We do not need any prior knowledge as we will cover this all in class, so there's no prior knowledge necessary. And this is our standard that we are addressing. Before we start our lesson, we also want to know, what do you already know about plants and what it takes to survive? So you can go ahead and write your short answer right here. And we want to know, what do plants need to survive? And it requires 4 things. So we're going to talk about air, sun, water, and soil. Moving on to air, plants breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. So in order to do this, plants need to breathe through the tiny holes called stomata, and you can see that in this picture right here. And these are just some great visuals to kind of understand, how do plants breathe?
Moving on to sun, plants get their energy from the sun. So since they don't eat or absorb food like humans do, they use solar energy, which is sunlight, to make their food, which is glucose, aka sugar. So these are some great visuals explaining how that happens. So as you can see up here, the flower is absorbing that sunlight, carbon dioxide is going in, and oxygen is going out. Moving on to the next slide. Plants also need soil to survive. So soil provides the support, the nutrients, and a network of water and air to the plant's roots. So soil helps to hold the plants up. It gives water and food/nutrients to the roots, and it also insulates the roots, helping maintain the right temperatures. So here in these diagrams, you can see the function of the roots here. All right, moving on to water. So when it comes to water, plants need water for the process of photosynthesis. So water is absorbed by the roots, and it travels through a plant stem to the chloroplast in the leaves. Water also helps move nutrients from soil into the plant. So in this picture here, we can see what's necessary for a plant survival. So we see water, light, soil, and air. And it's also necessary when a plant is unhealthy to have light, soil, friends, air, and love. All right, moving on to the next.
All right, we are now going to be talking about the life cycle of a plant. The plant life cycle starts as a tiny seed. Looking at the seed from the outside, we can see that it has a tough outer shell, which is known as an outer coat. Hiding inside the outer coat is a small baby plant called an embryo. Within the outer coat, there is a small amount of food for the small seed. In order for the seed to grow, the seed will need water, the sun, and rich soil. So you guys can see down here that in the first diagram, you can see where the plant gets its food and the little tiny embryo. On to the next slide. So when a plant has all the things that it needs, water, sunlight, and rich soil, it will begin to sprout. There will be a small root that comes from the bottom of the seed, in which the seed grows a small few hairs on top of the root. This will help the baby plant absorb the water and the minerals from the soil. This process is known as germination. The next step after the small plant has gone through germination is for it to become a seedling. This is when the seedling will begin to grow up towards the sunlight, and the tiny plant will use photosynthesis to help grow into an adult plant. Next slide. Once the plant becomes mature, depending on the plant, it will start to flower. The flowers are able to produce more seeds, which help make more plants. A mature plant has leaves, stems, roots, flowers, and fruits. Flowers are the reproductive part of a plant. The flower is what creates more seeds to help make new plants. The last step of the life cycle is pollination. Pollination is so important when it comes to the life cycle of a plant. Flowers use pollination to make seeds. The pollen is then transferred by different pollinators, such as birds, butterflies, bees, or even the wind. So in the images below, you can see a butterfly on top of the flower helping spread that pollen. Next slide.
Backyard Science presents From Seed to Fruit. The seed is planted. Plants need water to grow and get bigger. They get water from rain and from us. The seed starts to grow roots to help it get food from the soil. As the seed grows, its roots get longer to get more food and water from the soil. The seed is now a plant. The sun gives the plant energy so it can keep growing. Now the plant has flowers. The flowers turn into cherry tomatoes. You can pick the tomatoes to eat. Yum! Put the pictures of the tomato plant in order.
Okay, now as we move on to more information about pollination. Why is pollination important? Well, we are not only fertilizing the history of natural foods, but is also one of the essential parts on why the human race needs an ecosystem. Without pollinators, the human race wouldn't be able to have food. Of 1,400 crop plants grow around the world, those are able to produce the food that are plant-based for humans. Almost 80% of those require pollination by animals. Like we had mentioned before, those can be butterflies or bees and even the wind. Bees can visit other pollinators as a result in larger and more flavorful fruits and the higher crop fields. And then as you can see in the pictures, there is the whole process of how the pollinator takes the pollen from the original flower and moves on to another flower. In the next slide, why is pollination important to the life cycle of a plant? So for example, the bee will start on one flower and then move on to another flower. From the original flower, they are able to rub the pollen and move on from that one and rub it onto the female part and then grow and able to create the seed into the flower that is originally going to turn into the food. Next slide.
All right, so after hearing all of the information about plants and what it needs to survive, we want you guys just to go through these 5 questions, and they are true or false. So true or false, plants can eat food just like humans do. Number 2, plants need water for photosynthesis. True or false? Number 3, plants are able to breathe through their lungs. True or false? Number 4, pollination aids in plant reproduction. True or false? Last one, seeds only need soil in order to grow. True or false? So just take that time to think about what plants need in order to grow. And that is it for our presentation. Thank you so much for watching.